Spark architecture. Suppose we have 100 GB of data. Okay. We are writing a script in step 1 to process this 100 GB of data. We will submit that script in the in our system. That is called Spark submit. We need to remember this term, Spark submit. Okay. When we are submitting our application which we have prepared in the Spark, I mean in our system. While we'll submit our Spark, I mean doing Spark submit, we have to mention lot of details regarding the resources, like how much RAM we want for executor, how much RAM we want for uh, the driver. But we'll come that part later. For now, get this understanding that we have to prepare the script and submit that script in our system. When we'll submit that, it will create Spark session in step 3, and it will create a driver node. While submitting Spark application itself with the script, we'll specify that how much resources we'll need for driver, like how much RAM or core processor, what Partho was mentioning. We'll submit that details here while submitting the Spark itself. Then we will also submit a details for resource manager, that is called cluster manager. So it can be Yarn. Basically, everyone use Yarn resource manager. You will get to know about these things. There's 4 type of resource manager, but mostly people use Yarn. Okay. So now resource manager got created. Our driver node got created. So our driver node got created when we submitted our script. Okay. And we have mentioned there in our not script, but with the application itself while submitting it. We'll learn that later. The name of our cluster manager also. Now our cluster manager also got created in the, suppose in the cloud in AWS. Okay. Now our driver will come to cluster manager. Now we'll take an example of our work. Okay. Our humanly how we do in projects. Okay. Now take driver as our manager. Okay. Project manager, suppose. Take this script as client requirement. Take Spark submit as our higher management. Okay. And take the cluster manager as resource manager, like HR department, human resource. Okay. Okay. Now our project manager, which is our driver, got some work from the stakeholder. Okay. That they have to process 100 GB of data. Okay. Now driver decide how much resources, or how many, our human term, how many resources will need. Driver will decide how many people or associate will need to complete this project. Okay. Suppose driver have decided that we will need 4 people to complete this project with few skills. Driver, I mean manager will define few skills, like we need people with Python as skill or SQL as skill, like that. Okay. Like that, our driver will decide how much executor we need and how much resources with that particular executor will need. Like in this case, RAM. How much RAM will need, how much core will need. Okay. Now driver have decided, like manager or project manager decided how much people will need. Now it will come to the cluster manager. Like project manager will go to the talent acquisition team. Okay. Driver will come to cluster manager and request the cluster manager that I will need 4 executors to process this 100 GB of data. Like project manager would have asked the talent acquisition team that I'll need 4 people to process this project. Now cluster manager will allocate those resources. Cluster manager will create 4 executor. Suppose the driver requirement was each executor will have 30 GB of RAM. Okay. Now cluster manager is creating 4 executor, each having 30 GB of RAM. Like talent acquisition team would have hired 4 people with a particular skill. Okay. Now these executors are available. Now the cluster manager, or our case maybe talent manager, will go back to the driver node and inform that the resources you have asked, that is already present. I have created that. Okay. Now the driver will divide this task into jobs. I mean, divide this project into jobs. Suppose it has divided into 4 jobs. Okay. Now the driver will assign each job to each executor. The first job it has created, it will assign to suppose executor 1. Second job it will assign to executor 2. Third job it will assign to executor 3. Fourth job it will assign to executor 4. Okay. Now driver have assigned all the work to the executor. Like our project manager would have assigned the task or the jobs to the every associate or every individual. Suppose there is 4 associate. Now their work is to complete the task or the job provided by the manager. Same here, the executors are responsible to complete the task which got divided by the driver node. Here I was talking about the distributed system. Here you can see the task got divided into the job got divided into 4 part, and each part got distributed, I mean, assigned to each executor. Okay. Now 4 executor will complete this task. After completing this task, it will report back to the driver that the task you have provided to us, that is completed. Now the driver or the project manager, you can say, for an example, don't take it seriously and start calling the driver project manager. Okay. I'm giving just example for everyone understand. Now the driver got to know that our task is completed. Now the driver will come back again to the cluster manager and inform the cluster manager that this job is completed. Now you can reallocate these resources to another project or another job. Okay. Then the cluster manager will pull the resources from that particular application and inform back the driver that I have cleaned the resources from this particular assignment. That's how a Spark job work.